Happy Friday. Welcome to another edition of Roll Pod. I am recording from my Muscle Shoals hotel room. Was up and saw two Alabama commits go at it on Thursday night. So high school football season in full swing, going to be on the road a little bit. Mike and Alex will also be on the road a little bit as the season starts 8 days from now. We're recording this on August 22nd. Alabama set to take on Florida State August 30th. So we'll be here before we know it. I feel like it's been a busy week. We've been tracking the sod improvement over at Florida State, the rain, the 9-game schedule. We've heard from coaches, we've heard from players. It's been a jam-packed week. It's been a busy week, and it's only going to get busier. But that's kind of our starting point. Alex, over the last week, we've been able to see practice for 10 minutes. We've talked to some coaches. We've talked to players, like I said. Where are you at? Kind of set the stage again with 8 days to go. Anything new? Anything the same? Is it blah? Is it dunno? Where are you at?
I think it's the Jam Miller thing continues to be probably the number one surprise storyline, just because obviously you can't predict an injury like that. I did think it was interesting the way Kalen DeBoer talked about it yesterday and not really hiding. I don't think he'd call it disappointment, but something along those lines, that there's not really separation. That's what they're looking for at that position, because you've got a bunch of guys, whether you're talking about Daniel Hill, Richard Young, Dre Washington, Kevin Riley, A.K. Deere, I guess, are in that mix as well. And there's not really a clear-cut number two now that Jam's off the board. And who's going to step up and be that guy? They've only had a few practices to sort of get there, so there's still time. But I think it's a little bit concerning that you don't hear him necessarily feeling great about one guy. And then, what does the next week look like? And how does whoever the guy is I think, Kalen talked about was, can they do those little things like pass protection, catching the ball out of the backfield, the things that make the offense really work outside of just carrying the football. I think, that's going to be a pretty substantial thing worth watching this coming week. And then obviously once we get into Florida State, because it's not just, season opener, it's a season opener on the road too, for guys at that position who don't have a lot of experience with that.
Right. The tone from DeBoer and Grubb on the running back position was not great. It wasn't, we feel great about the guys behind them and we're going to be fine. It was a little bit, we got to figure this out. So, I don't think you want to go down there and have Ty Simpson throwing the ball 40 times and just you have no running game and you're just trying to win by overwhelming them with talent at wide receiver. Like that sometimes doesn't work, especially if the weather is not great, which didn't take me very long to dive into my computer models. But there's still a chance. It's either going to be humid and rainy and kind of typical summer like that, or there's actually might be a little bit of a cold front that comes in and it feels a little bit more like October in Tallahassee. So either way, I don't know if it's going to be 95 and humid and sunny like they've kind of been preparing for, but there's a possibility that you might need to kind of grind out a game that has a pop-up thunderstorm or more sustained rain or something. And it's probably going to be Daniel Hill and Richard Young in that case. It was even interesting to hear Grubb talk about Kevin Riley last week, who just honestly has been completely off the radar since he got here, just because there's been other guys in that room. And if he's ahead of Dre Washington, which during a few reps of the drills that we watched on Tuesday, that was the case, that would be interesting for a fifth-year guy like Dre Washington, who kind of seemed like he had a strong start to fall camp. And just doesn't really seem like he's in a position right now. All right, Jan goes down. Like Dre Washington's your experienced fifth-year guy coming in. Like that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like it's going to be between Richard Young and Daniel Hill. Is the vibe that I get. I just don't know how great they feel about that.
Yeah, and James Smith being back is some good news if you're looking for good news. A guy who I think could be a real difference maker in the interior of the defensive line. And then Jaden Roberts continues to be out, and it doesn't sound like there's a lot of optimism, frankly, that he's going to be back in time to make any sort of impact with Florida State. If you're not taking any team reps and a game is 9 days away, and you haven't been taking reps for a while now, it's just kind of tough. But, we've said it before. I think they're going to have to roll into Tallahassee with Cam Dewberry and Gino Vandemark as the guards, left and right, respectively. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. As we've talked about, both of those guys have experience. Both of those guys have ability. And I think even if Jaden was healthy, I'm not sure they wouldn't be the first two guys out there either way.
Yeah. Kind of sticking on offense, kind of putting a wrap on the offensive side of the ball. Anything else you guys want to point out or anything like that when it comes to, again, the offense? It seems like, yeah, of course, the running back is the biggest question mark or biggest storyline. The guard position, if you've been listening to Roll Pod, it not very surprising that it's probably going to be Gino and Cam. But Mike, Alex, anything else on the offensive side of the ball that's kind of you're thinking about?
I will say, and maybe I'm stealing Mike's thunder here, because it might have been Mike who asked about it, or somebody else asked about the tight end room.
Mm-hmm.
And because we've been sort of watching, continuing to see Josh Cuevas off to the side, and the fact that Grubb said, yeah, he's not 100%, but he's not missing reps either. So he's still part of team and still doing all those things. It sounds very much like it doesn't seem like there's a lot of concern that he's going to be 100% ready. Or I should just say ready to go against Florida State. I don't know how close to 100% it'll be.
Right.
That's a big piece, especially considering I don't think they quite know what they have everywhere else in terms of catching the football and doing all the things they had in, pretty abundant supply last year with CJ Dupree and Robbie Utes.
Yeah, going to be really interesting to see the snap distribution at tight end. Cuevas, Danny Lewis, Pritchett, Edwards, Brody Dalton, Jackson Marco, Jay Lindsey.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still don't know.
Marshall Pritchett? Did you say Pritchett?
Yeah, Marshall Pritchett.
Yeah.
I still don't know. We're a week out from the game, and everybody can assume Cuevas is going to get the most reps, most snaps. But after that, I don't know. We'll find out.
I've said, look, maybe they play less two tight end, but I do think starting out on the road with a first-time starting quarterback, it might be good to have two guys out there who can block and protect Ty in that environment, at least early on, until you know how your offensive line is going to hold up.
Yeah, absolutely. Caleb Edwards at 6'6", 264 is hard to ignore. But again, I know it's a freshman. I know it's a true freshman.
It's just it's the physicality. Brock Bowers is a unicorn.
Yeah.
How many other freshman tight ends can we name that really made an impact in the SEC? It's just really hard to do.
Absolutely. Flipping over, or was going to flip over to defense, but we'll stop halfway. Special teams. You talk about opening in Tallahassee. There could be some opportunities where special teams becomes important. Snapping the ball is very important. If it's wet, if it's rainy, if it's it's hard to do. And when you're replacing all three, it's very hard to do. Alex, I think you had a story up. Connor Talty kind of struggled over the weekend, but kind of is back in the picture and is still his job. Alex, kind of where you have special teams, and Mike will give you the floor as well. Obviously.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that it's Connor Talty's job. Yeah. I mean, they're rolling with him come hell or high water. Maybe we'll have high water. But he didn't have a great scrimmage, and it was interesting. Kalen said basically he was honest about it. He didn't do well in the scrimmage, but he said, look, he had a great week of practice before that. And then on Tuesday, he was asked, how did he respond? And he said he's been great. He's had a great practice, including one longer field goal they weren't sure was going to make the uprights, and he sends it halfway up. So the question is, it's not leg, it's not ability. It's when you're in a stadium and you have all that pressure on you, how are you going to respond? And that's one of the biggest unknowns with this team in general. Just as you're going to need that guy, because as we've talked about on this podcast, Jalen Milroe, for all that he was and was not, he was a cheat code on fourth down and inside the red zone. So they didn't have to kick the ball that much. They're going to have to do that more probably. And they're going to need Connor Talty to be, not a liability at the very least. So you feel good about how he's looked in practice. You worry about how he's looked in scrimmages and what that means moving forward. And then the other side of it is because Kalen was asked just who has separated themselves on special teams. And it sounds very clearly like he didn't hesitate. It's Blake Dowd. I think he's going to be your starting punter. There was some question about Alex Asparuhoff, but Dowd has bounced back from a maybe not great start in the spring. and they're seeing what they saw coming out of Colorado School of the Mines, which is promising. But as you talked about, it's maybe weather conditions, all those things. We'll see how he does week one, how it translates. Colorado School of Mines is one thing. SEC's completely different. I mean, I could say the Pac-12 is completely different, but it's still fine.
You can say the Mountain West is completely different than Colorado School of Mines. Look, I mean, if honestly, more than a quarterback, I think the thing that could cause Alabama fans to reach for their bottle of liquor next Saturday afternoon is going to be special teams, because you don't know how it's going to look. These guys have not worked together for very long. Even David Byrd, the long snapper they brought in from Cal, missed the spring. So he's only been working with these guys since the summer. So it's brand new. And you add there's other pieces around too, like Jay Nunez, the special teams coach, was talking about how they're missing Robbie Utes, who was their personal protector on the punt team for at least the last 2, 3, 4 years. Emmanuel Henderson, a gunner on the punt team, was apparently, in Nunez's words, the best in the league. He transferred to Kansas. So there's other pieces on special teams. You don't know what the return game looks like. It seems like they're going to maybe shy away from Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard in the return game, probably to help save their bodies a little bit. But look, there's been adventures in that area too, even going back 2 years ago with Kool-Aid McKinstry. People were probably reaching for objects watching Alabama in some of those games. So
the flat screens that were broken, I'm sure.
Right, yeah. I mean, things might be thrown at the TV if there's a bad snap, if there's a missed field goal, if there's a muffed punt, if there's a whatever, a block punt, block field goal. Like, there's a lot of things that could go wrong in special teams, and we just don't know how it's going to look because this is a new group of players. And I mean, Colorado School of Mines, baby. Alumni Field at Marv K Stadium seats 4,000 people. Doak Campbell seats a few more than that. Ryan Denny seats a few more than that.
I think I was at a bigger stadium at Muscle Shoals High School last night.
And look, I'll say this: like James Burnett 4 years ago, 2021, came from Australia, had never been in a college football stadium before, performed pretty well. He had that one play, I think it was at Florida, where there was a bad snap. He had to fall on it. And then there was that bad snap in the Iron Bowl that year with Paul Tyson was, I think, the snapper. And had to go to James Burnett. But really, since then, there's been very few of those type of mistakes. And that's probably a credit to Will Reichert and Neil Hibbett and James Burnett and all those guys. And look, they're all gone. So here we go.
Yeah. One unit that is not inexperienced, not young, is the defense. I mean, you look at the group, it has, on paper, it has everything to be one of the best in the country, but it's not about on paper. It's, you look at LT Overton. LT Overton's kind of the perfect example. I know I'm bringing up Alex Great point, like 35 pressures, 2 sacks. How is that even possible? But I guess that's to say is, Alex, is that your leading question on the defense? Where are you on the defense? Is it, where's Dijon Lee going to play? I mean, only so many times we can ask that. But.
I think Dijon Lee is going to be a great player. I think we're wasting a tremendous amount of time talking about Dijon Lee. And maybe he's a starting caliber player. You know what starting caliber means? It means you're probably not starting. He'll play snaps. It's an interesting storyline. I think he can make an impact. But at the end of the day, Damani Jackson is not coming off the field. Xavier Brown is not coming off the field. The reason he's getting all those reps is because they're slowly working Damani back because he missed all of spring, a lot of the summer, and they've had him on a pitch count because they know they need him to be healthy. So the question is, like, where everybody fits in the secondary is really interesting. The more pressing question is the same thing I've been talking about for over 365 days. Who's getting the quarterback?
Yeah.
LT, again, statistically, it's probably not going to be the spread of 39 pressures and 2 sacks. He should improve those numbers. But who else is getting after the quarterback? Because Jahad Campbell was that guy a year ago. He's gone. Is one of those inside linebackers going to give you some of that? Can Quay Rousseau step up? I think he can. Can James Smith? That's, to me, the biggest question is, I don't care. That secondary could have 4 all SEC players. If you can't get to the quarterback, it doesn't make a lick of difference.
Yep.
Because time is everything. So who are going to be those guys? That, to me, is the the most pressing question aside from what happens if there's an injury up front. But that's kind of one of those things you can't really prepare for.
Right. I know people are excited about Dijon Lee. I know people are excited about Xavier Mincy. I know people are excited about, go right down the list. Ivan Taylor, Justin Hill, Keon Keeley. Like, people are excited about a lot of different dudes. But the names that you need to be knowing on this defense this year are not those. It's Deshaun Jones, the fifth-year Husky from Wake Forest, going to play a lot of snaps for him. It's Jabarian Latham, who's been here since the dawn of time, 6-year player. He's going to play a lot of snaps at Wolf. It's Justin Jefferson and Deontay Lawson, and really Nakai Hill-Green being the new guy in that middle as well. It's Jordan Renaud on the edge, who's the main backup to LT Overton. It's Beeman and Edric Hill in the middle. So, again, let's use our brain cells for the right purposes here and focus on the players that are actually going to play. And look, Dijon Lee's going to play, but I don't think he's going to play as much as people think.
If he plays as much as people think, it's because something bad might have happened. That there's an injury or somebody's fallen off tremendously because, again, there's only so many reps. There's only so many spots on the field.
Right. There's a lot of veterans on this defense, a lot of 4th, 5th, 6-year guys. And they all have something to prove. There's a question mark about every single one. There's not a first-round pick on this defense right now.
Yep.
There's not. LT Overton could be. Damani Jackson could be. Tim Keenan might maybe be. Deontay Lawson, I don't think would, but he still, I think, needs to prove something. That's why he came back to school. Quay Russo. So can those guys take the next step? In some ways, the last step of their college careers and get in that position. And how many guys do that, I think, is going to determine how good this defense will be.
Yeah, sneaky storyline within that is how does Kane Womack adjust after a year in the SEC with a pretty unique defense? What adjustments does he make against the second half Georgia team, the Vanderbilt team that ruined his year? And he's got something to prove as well.
And what adjustments the opposing offensive coordinators make, because you're playing a lot of the same teams.
Yep.
Playing all the same teams in the SEC. So, and I'd have to go down the list. I think a lot of those coordinators are back. So how do they adjust to whatever went right or wrong against Alabama last year? How does that chess match play out kind of in all the rematches that they have this year?
Speaking of scheduling,
there's a perfect segue. Mike, we'll let you kind of lead the way here and we'll go from that. Obviously, big news yesterday on Thursday, SEC adopting the 9-conference schedule. Seemed like that was always going to happen at some point or another. Ends up happening this week. Mike Cook.
Right. It was one of those things that there's a couple main reasons they were holding back. Some schools had always not wanted to play 9 because it would not make them bowl eligible. If you're Kentucky or Mississippi State or whatever, you're putting yourself in a tougher position to become bowl eligible, which then affects finances. Kind of a dumb reason, but that was some of the opposition there. And a couple of those schools, like South Carolina, already plays Clemson as a yearly opponent. So they were kind of considering that a 9th SEC game in their head. And then you had schools that were a little bit concerned about strength of schedule in the playoff. And that, I think, is where Alabama shifted to, because for the longest time, it was Nick Saban saying we need to play more SEC games. That's what fans want. And he saw LSU potentially as one of the permanent opponents for Alabama. And I think backed him off. And then even when he left, Greg Burns kind of in that chair in terms of the senior guy there. And I think Byrne obviously had some trepidations about what happened, at the playoff selection last year. So those are some of the main reasons that it hasn't happened. Plus, you needed more money from ESPN to make it worthwhile, which they got. $5 million per team, I think, is the number per year.
Feels kind of low, right? Feels a little low.
5 times 16 is what, 80 million? So
I'm just saying $5 million for if you're weighing it as a playoff risk. What I could make in the playoff is a lot more than $5 million.
Right. But it helps you pay players, I guess.
And sell tickets.
And revenue sharing and all that. So that was some of the holdup. And look, I think the playoff committee coming out this week and saying we're going to change the strength of schedule metric was kind of what the SEC was waiting for. And that was kind of the playoffs gesture. And then I think this is the SEC's gesture in return. So it was kind of surprising that it happened this quickly. It was kind of out of the blue, it seemed like, but it also was something that had been in the works for a while and something that Sankey, had wanted. So, look, it's not an automatic win. Like this could be a situation that backfires against the SEC, and maybe it causes fewer teams to make the playoff. I think they understand that risk, but I think the value to fans is there. I think fans would rather watch an SEC game than watch Alabama and Eastern Illinois or South Florida. Now, the ball's in Greg Burns' court as far as what he wants to do with non-conference scheduling. He put the clause in all these contracts that says if the scheduling format changes in the SEC, then we can figure out a different day to play this game or a different year. And there's 2 power conference opponents on their schedule, non-conference wise, for several years now. West Virginia and Florida State being those next year. Do they get rid of one of those? I think it's a possibility. Or do you just roll with what you have and hope that the committee respects you if you do lose a few games? And we'll have to see what Byrne does. He's kind of been hinting at maybe getting rid of some of those games, and I'd say you probably might want to get rid of like Ohio State game more than West Virginia. Bama's running from West Virginia. I think it's a little bit more understandable to get out from like Ohio State because you're probably going to play them in the playoff. But yeah, that's kind of where it's at. We don't know when the actual opponents will be announced. And we can get into the topic of permanent opponents because there's going to be 3 permanent opponents and then 6 rotating as part of your 9-game schedule, which, again, this format's been talked about for years. And kind of what Nick Saban learned in his conversations a couple of years ago was that LSU was going to be the 3rd opponent, for Alabama, along with Tennessee and Auburn. The SEC has not announced that yet. I don't think it's going to be a while before they do. The whole schedule is not going to come out until December.
They're going to make it a television show.
Right. That's what Sankey said yesterday. He wants it to be a TV show. So, look, I know everybody wants Mississippi State because it's probably easier for Alabama, but I don't think that's going to happen for a few reasons. Number one, TV. Number 2, they have analytics companies looking at this. And as much as Auburn's always a tough game for Alabama, as much as Tennessee is like a tough rivalry game for Alabama, when you're looking at like 10-year win metrics, those teams aren't that great. They're very much middle of the pack. And when you look at even the more recent metrics for Auburn's been bad, for the last 5 years. Like, they're not a good team. So when you're factoring in, like, who does Alabama have? Yes, I said,
check it.
It's perfectly acceptable in my mind.
In your mind.
In my mind. But, like, Auburn's actually a break on Alabama's schedule as far as, like, the numbers are concerned. So you almost do have to balance that out if you're the SEC with an LSU. When you look at like Auburn's by default playing Alabama and Georgia every year, like you're not getting out from those rivalries. Like that's tough. Texas plays Oklahoma. Oklahoma plays Texas. Those are both pretty highly caliber teams. So I think it's fair in my mind for Alabama to play LSU. I know people think Tennessee and Auburn are good teams, and they sort of are, but they're not as good in recent history with the metrics that the SEC is going to be looking at as a Texas, as an Oklahoma, as an Alabama, as a Georgia, as a LSU, as an A&M, as a Florida, even Ole Miss. Like those teams are all better. So that's my rank.
Nick Saban was on the record wanting 9 games for a long time. I don't think it's just LSU being a part of those 3 opponents that made him back off. I think it was Tennessee getting good. I think had another part in that because Alabama had how many wins in a row against Tennessee before they lost up in Knoxville?
Butch Davis, and then it was bad for a while. People forget Tennessee was a bad team.
Yeah.
But let's also I'll let you go in a second, but like Tennessee also could be falling off again.
Yes,
that's also possible.
That's why fair has nothing to do with this. There's never going to be a scenario in which everyone's going to have equal 3 rotating opponents. You want to know how it came together so quickly out of nowhere? That's what happens when you don't have 100% consensus. is you operate in a strategic way as a commissioner, and you get your presidents and your athletic directors away from your head coaches, and you get them on board, and then you create momentum, and then the head coaches basically go, oh, well, I guess we're going to do this. We're going to get $5 million. We got to go along with the plan. It's the best thing for the SEC. It was never a good look for the SEC to play 8 games, even though you could make, I think, what is a good faith argument that 8 in the SEC is harder than 9 in the Big Ten a lot of years. But they should play 9. It's a better look. It's good for fans. It's good for television. It's good for everybody. You're never going to get to the right 3. I don't care if it's Mississippi State, LSU, whatever it is. They'll figure it out. Doing this, I think, has more to do with money than it does necessarily the playoff, because the playoff can say they're going to value things whatever way they want to value them. It doesn't matter. They're going to make a decision in a room among people at the end of the day. So if fans are thinking, oh, they changed it from strength of schedule to strength of record, now it's going to favor the SEC, and therefore SEC teams will get in over. No.
I would be cautious with that.
It's still going to be a decision that they look at in the room, and all these metrics don't matter. It's going to be a conversation, and that's where things like metrics fall by the wayside. So I don't know. I think maybe if I'm being optimistic, I'm thinking the SEC knows that the format is going to change for the better, and it's not necessarily how the teams are chosen. It's what teams are chosen and the number of them and the way they're chosen. So, it's good for the SEC. Maybe it's not great for Alabama, but you know what? At the end of the day, we're talking about the health of an entire sport, the health of a league, in a time when it's not the healthiest in terms of fan engagement. A lot of people are pissed off about the way the sport is going. And to improve the regular season, even if it hurts a few teams in the process, is still worth doing. And if the playoff doesn't cooperate in terms of how they schedule, SEC still holds the most leverage, and they can just say, fine, we're going to blow up the playoff, and we'll make nice with the Big Ten and go do our own thing.
Yeah, Mike brought up a point there, and just to ask you guys, I feel like I know the answer, but for the South Carolinas, the Floridas, the Georgias, who are already playing a big, an ACC team as their rival, tough, right? That's just how it is. That's your schedule, right? Is that kind of I see like a little bit of social media saying, well, that, Florida already plays, an ACC, Georgia already play, tough SHIT, right?
That's your 10th game.
Yeah.
And if you want to go to an 11th power conference opponent, I don't see why you shouldn't.
Can I make one more point?
Yeah, go ahead.
As Greg Byrne looks to make these decisions about what games to keep and what games not to keep, I think there is an argument that losing West Virginia, if we're talking about West Virginia, Ohio State, losing West Virginia and keeping Ohio State could still be the best path. You're going to make a boatload of money. The exposure that goes along with it. And frankly, I don't think the playoff committee is going to ding a team for a loss that's a top 5 loss at a conference. I really don't think they're going to. As much as we talk about counting losses, those losses don't really count. I just don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to send that message that they don't want teams scheduling that way. And again, at the end of the day, these athletic directors are balancing a lot of things, and they're balancing ticket sales is a part of it, and fan engagement. And I think you have to continue to give fans really good games. Otherwise, I don't know how much more some people are going to keep showing up, because again, they're getting priced out of a lot of stuff, and they're watching the health of the sport not go in a great spot. So I'd hate to see Alabama lose any good games, but I'd rather keep those marquee games and risk a loss and just hope that the playoff committee does the right thing.
Well, yeah, that's part of it too, because it honestly might hurt you more losing to West Virginia. But the way the strength of schedule was announced this week, they said you'll be penalized more for losing to teams. And we're assuming West Virginia is not good next year, but chances are they won't be. I don't know. We'll see what happens with Rich Rod.
50 new transfers they have this year.
It's insane. But I mean, it undermines the whole argument that, as an SEC team with an extra loss, we should get into the playoff because we played a tougher schedule than a Big 12 team or an ACC team when you just went to a Big 12 stadium and in this particular scenario lost. Mm-hmm. So it's a rabbit hole, but we'll have to see what Greg Byrne does. It's in his court. It's in their contracts that they can make tweaks. It's just a matter of whether they want to do it or not. And obviously there's going to be a PR hit if they do. And I think they would have to just accept that.
And then you direct them to Indiana scheduling Little Sisters of the Poor and doing it blatantly and say, you know what, whatever.
As the Atlanta correspondent, give Kennesaw State some credit. They're in their second year. They're FBS. But
yeah. Go
big,
Staters. I don't know what's Kennesaw State's mascot.
Owls.
Right? Hootie hoo.
Woohoo.
That is our kind of, again, week wrap. It felt like we haven't been on for a while. It's been a busy week. We talked about the 9-game schedule. We've kind of hit the 30-minute mark. Flipping over to kind of national predictions. Mike and Alex are going to give their very quick thoughts on a handful of predictions. I'm going to present the question. Mike and Alex are going to go, and then we will call it a wrap and go into the weekend. Alex, we'll start with you. Who will be holding that big old trophy in New York with the Heisman on it in December?
Big old.
I got a dark horse pick. It's a Nick Saban recruit. It's Caleb Downs. I think there's going to be a lot of focus on Jeremiah Smith. I think there's going to be a lot of focus on Arch Manning. I think this is the year we get a defensive player in the mix. This guy's been one of the best players in college football since the minute he set foot on a football field. I love everything about his game. And I think, frankly, they need him to be a superstar given what they've lost on that defense from a year ago. I just think people are sleeping a little bit on what he might be able to do in a national race. I know he's probably way off the board. I don't even know if he's got odds. But I'm just telling you, this guy's going to make plays. I have a feeling he might make plays on special teams. And Alabama fans, I don't know how they're going to feel about it, but I still think they like the guy. I think Caleb Downs has got a good chance.
I thought you were going to, when you said former Nick Saban recruit, I thought it was going to be an Eli Holstein, a Dylan Lonergan, a Julian Sand. Keep on going and going.
I'm not going. I just figured I'd give a little Alabama angle to it. That's
absolutely.
I mean, there are a few Nick Saban recruits on the list between Ty Simpson and Eli Holstein. Julian Sand, Dylan Lonergan is plus 5,000. How about this? Diego Pavia plus 7,500. You know who's right behind him at plus 8,000? This is on Caesars. Austin Mack.
Oh,
Austin Mack, baby, has relatively high odds to win the Heisman Trophy. Much higher than a lot of other starting quarterbacks. Not other starting quarterbacks, much higher than starting quarterbacks. Look, for my pick, I'm torn between two guys, and I think obviously it's typical that a quarterback would win. And if I'm going to give it to a quarterback, I'm going to go with Cade Klubnik because I think that Clemson has a potential to be really good this year. Like I predicted accurately last year.
Somewhat accurately.
And you look at even his playoff game against Texas, 26 of 43, 336 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like he puts up numbers, man. His numbers are pretty good. 36 touchdowns last year, 6 interceptions, 3,600 yards. And if you are able to piece that all together again this year against an ACC schedule, obviously the Heisman is not a playoff award. It doesn't really matter what you do in the playoffs. It's given out before that. Cade Klubnik, I think, has a chance to be statistically right there. But if it's not him,
choking on your pick.
I am. I'm choking as I talk. I think Jeremiah Smith is the only option to not be a quarterback. I think
You're not buying Jeremiah Love at all at Notre Dame. I think there's a chance.
Yeah, but I don't know. If Ashton Genty couldn't do it last year, like,
yeah,
how much more can Jeremiah Love do? It's tough.
I have a feeling
Jeremiah Smith. If Julian Sayin is good, then I think Jeremiah Smith can be right there too.
One, I think Julian Sayin is going to be good. I don't know if Alabama fans particularly would like to hear that, but that kid can sling it. Two, I think coming out of that Clemson LSU game, you might like the Twitter is going to have a Heisman by that night anyway. You know, between
the winning quarterback will have the Heisman.
Right, and probably rightfully so. The winner of that, if they should be leading again, it's only week 1. So, but just kind of be mindful of that. There will be a Heisman winner on Saturday night, whether that be Cade or Nussmeier.
And Cade has moments where he looks really good then there are moments where he doesn't. It's why he sort of feels emblematic of Clemson. He's been there so long that I like the pick. I do. There's a piece of me that thinks all this Clemson hype is really interesting because what has changed from a year ago? All those players that everybody's talking about being a first-round pick coming out of this year were really good last year too. And there were moments where they didn't look great, where they got blown out by Georgia to start the season. Now, they made the playoff.
Again, Mike,
I know you're going to say they scored whatever points against Texas. That game was never really in doubt. They beat SMU. Congrats, by 3 points.
Sounds like another team I know.
Yeah.
Sounds like the Alabama Crimson Tide. It's a lot of the same players, and what happened last year.
And that's why there's a little skepticism in me. I'd say both teams are playoff teams, no doubt. In my mind, that's where they should be. That should be the expectation for Alabama. That should be an expectation for Clemson. But if you put a gun to my head and said, how far are these guys going to make it? I don't know. Because there's another gear both of those teams need to get to that they have not shown recently.
Yep. Next up, real quick, SEC champion, Mike.
I'm going to go with Texas. I know that's kind of the easy play, but Texas is Texas, and they've recruited really well. I like Sark in terms of what he's able to do. I know that there's some disappointing results in the playoffs lately, but they're still to win the SEC. I think they're still very much capable. And if Georgia has fallen off just that much, a quarterback maybe, then maybe Texas has the window to win the SEC this year. But I don't know, if you had a neutral field and you match up Texas against every other team in the SEC, I think I'd pick Texas. So I guess by default, that means I'm picking Texas to win the SEC.
Yeah, I'd pick Georgia and Texas to make the game. I think Texas will win. It's weird. I have more questions about Texas on offense than I do on defense in terms of personnel, but Sark is such a good coordinator that I don't worry about it. And I do think Arch Manning is going to be the real deal. But I think people are sleeping on how good they could be defensively. Anthony Hill might be the best player in college football that nobody talks about. Colin Simmons is right up there as well. They're going to be nasty in the front seven. And they've got players on the back end too, specifically at safety and cornerback. I think Texas is their dark horse pick would be LSU. I do believe that they have the highest potential, but there's too much there to prove for me to feel great about picking them to win the whole thing.
Yeah, and we've got another weekly roundtable out talking some if Alabama's going to make the SEC championship and if it matters. So make sure to go and read that. I know Alex has some thoughts about conference championship games as a whole that you can read over at the roundtable. Next up, we'll start with Alex since Mike gave the first pick last time. Your national champion, kind of putting you guys on the spot here, but be here before you know it.
Yeah, it will. And, it's harder to pick a national champion now because the playoff and the grueling aspect of how do you get through it. My gut just says it's going to be Texas that's there, though. I just think that the way they've recruited, what they have on both sides of the ball, they're just a really good team. And it feels like it's kind of their time to step up into that upper echelon. They're already kind of there, but I think they're competing for a national championship. I think they could win one. I think Alabama's got a chance there too. I just think there are more question marks facing Alabama than there are Texas at this point. And I know everybody's going to say DeBoer's beaten Sark. And they're going to say DeBoer's beaten Lanning. And that's all true. But it's not about who's calling plays and coaching the team all the time. It's all also about personnel. And as good as Alabama's roster is, I think Texas has got more of those elite players than Alabama has shown to this point.
Mr. Mike?
Repeat champions, the Ohio State University. And look, here's what's probably going to happen. Next Saturday, Ohio State, I think, is probably going to beat Texas in Columbus because it's a home game. And I just lean towards Ohio State. And then I think from there, Ohio State is going to be number one, and they're going to be the favorites until proven otherwise. And we'll see if Ryan Day loses to Michigan again. We'll get to Michigan in a minute. I'll go with Ohio State. I think Texas is going to be right there. I think there could be a rematch pretty deep into the playoffs, but I think Ohio State wins this first game, and then Ohio State has an opportunity to do what they did last year. They don't have Travion Henderson and Quinshaw Junkin and some of the players they had last year, but they still have some players. They're Ohio State, yo. So there you go.
They lost a lot on defense.
And they have the Heisman. They have Alex's Heisman.
Yeah, they do. But I think, one guy doesn't carry an entire team. And I think in the post, I think they do make the playoffs. I don't know that Ohio State goes back to back. I think there's a lot of challenges in there that I think there's a game in there where they trip up.
You can make the argument they have the two best players in college football.
Yes. But do they have the best player in college football at the most important position? We don't know what Julian Saint's going to do.
What are you saying?
I don't think there even is an argument. It might be a fact that those are the two best players in college football. Like I don't even think there's an argument there. Like it's no
We're
question.
talking about Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs.
Yes.
They're great, but Jeremiah Smith can't throw himself the football.
Right.
And what happens when a team puts three guys on him? I know Ohio State traditionally has a ton of depth at receiver. Is it still there this year? I don't know.
I mean,
This is a wide open field, though. I really think there's probably 10, 11, 12 teams that all, if things break the right way, can compete for a national championship.
Right. You can say it about pretty much any team right now that's lost a quarterback. Obviously, Texas, new quarterback. Ohio State, new quarterback. Georgia, new quarterback. Notre Dame, new quarterback. Alabama, new quarterback. It's true for a lot of teams.
It's a little different because Arch did get thrown in a lot.
Right. Yeah, he's played more. And Gunnar Stockton, played at the end of last season.
At a high level, I don't know, though.
But if you're going to lean towards like the incumbent quarterbacks, then you'd obviously look to a Nussmeier in LSU, look toward a Klubnik at Clemson, or you look toward an Aller at Penn State. But I don't know if that's going to tell the whole story to me.
Is Drew Aller a great quarterback?
I was wondering if Aller was going to come up. I think
Nick Saban likes everybody. Nick Saban's never said a bad word about anything ever, except structure of things.
Let's
Andy's home crowd.
Let's keep it rolling.
Andy's home crowd.
Yeah, he did.
Completely ate that one. Holy crap.
Let's keep it rolling. We were talking a little bit off camera before. I think it was Mike pulled up the statistic. Was it 20 years a preseason top 10 team?
22 years except for 2019. The past 22 years.
A top 10 preseason team has finished outside of the top 25. Is that correct?
Yes.
And with that being said, Mike, who is your pick out of the top 10 to finish out of the top 25?
There are some options here. When you look at Illinois, I think has some buzz. Arizona State with Sam Leavitt. Granted, they've lost Cam Scadaboo. South Carolina with Lenora Sellers. Florida is pretty talented. They have a really tough schedule, though, but they have DJ Lagway. Oklahoma, I'm sure, is going to be Alex's pick because he is all OU. And then A&M is A&M's also a talented team. But my pick is the team that, with a band of nobodies last year, beat Alabama. And Alabama was trying to win that game with who they had in that game. Michigan. Michigan, I think, is a wild card when you think about the quarterback situation.
Mm-hmm.
If Bryce Underwood looks like the number one overall prospect in the country early, the sky's the limit. Like, if you have that sort of player at quarterback, I don't know why you can't win. That's the game of football. You have a elite quarterback, you're going to be right there. And then, yes, they've lost a lot, but they lost a lot of those guys before they even played Alabama last year. And they still were able to figure that out because I think they have a really good coaching staff, especially these days. Well, not especially these days, but even these days without some help from external factors, they're able to do it. And they beat Ohio State last year. Did they not? Am I dreaming about that? So to me, Michigan, if Bryce Underwood, and that's a big if, can look elite early, then they should be in the mix. To me.
So Michigan's your pick for the outside of the top 10 to finish?
No, I was actually answering your next question.
Okay.
And I was
going to say,
but what was the question?
I was so excited about Michigan that I answered the next question that you were going to ask. So
well, let's go backward. No, we can end on a negative note then.
Right. Yeah. So let's answer out. I answered the question. The question is, which team outside of the top 10 is going to be a national title contender.
Yeah.
And my pick is Michigan. Alex will give his pick, and then we'll
That
go
would be negative.
to the question of which team in the top 10 is going to fall out. I'm sorry I got so excited about Michigan. I don't know. I gained a lot of respect for them watching them in the ReliaQuest Bowl last year. Those are words I've never spoken before, but they did a good job.
Nothing has ever been proven, and no mind should ever be changed in what happens in Tampa, Florida. Period.
What happens in Tampa stays in Tampa.
It should.
That applies to non-football, everything. That's life.
Yes. Except Bloomin' Onions. They can leave Tampa. That's it. I don't believe in Michigan. I don't. Like, to say if they're going to get a leap play out of a true freshman quarterback, that's like the biggest if you could possibly throw out there. And he's going to do it like they averaged 130 yards passing last year. Not 1905, 2025.
And they beat Ohio State and Alabama.
Yeah, well, Ohio State has got the yips against them. Yeah. Alabama was just garbage in that game. I don't know that said more about. I think it said more about what Alabama wasn't than what Michigan was. And oh, by the way, and I know these guys did not play in the ReliaQuest Bowl, but the ReliaQuest Bowl, it doesn't matter at all. But they don't have Mason Graham, Colson Love, Kenneth Grant, Will Johnson, Josiah Stewart. Like, a bad team had 7 players drafted from it, including 3 in the first round, and you think they're going to be better? Who is he going to throw the football to? Who's Bryce Underwood throwing the football to?
They got that Donovan McCulley kid from Indiana.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Like, I need to see it. I need to see it. They could be good. I don't think they're a playoff team contending for a national championship good.
Playoff?
Yeah. My pick is Oklahoma because beating Alabama took place in the regular season when it mattered. And they just went out and got maybe one of the best quarterbacks in the country in John Mateer. And they got his offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle. And they got a really good running back in Jaden Knott. Could I interest you in those 3 things? So the thing they were not great at, in fact, terrible at a year ago, they improved at in terms of personnel. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they're really strong. They've got good players up front. They got a great coach in Brent Venables. They're in good shape. I think the floor for Oklahoma might be low, but I think the ceiling's really high.
And then we will end it with
the preseason top 10 team to finish outside of the top 25. So end it kind of, like you said, in a negative light. Alex, since we'll go with you, get the first pick this go around.
Hopefully my dogs stop barking in the background.
Oh, good.
Are you picking Georgia?
Am I picking? I'm not picking Georgia.
You hate Gunnar Stockton. Let's
look.
Get that
Yeah, a little bit. Look, I think as it relates to that, and they're recruiting at a higher level. Like how does Georgia end up with a guy who's not a 5-star quarterback? Like you should kind of have those guys sitting around.
I joke with Ben Wolk, who does a great job recruiting over there. I was like, you need to write a book about the Kirby quarterback recruiting.
And is Jamie Newman on the cover of that book?
Right, and it's who has come out of like the 5-stars, and then it was Fromm who came out and did this, and then it's a crazy character.
It's all over the place.
It was a walk-on. He won 2 national titles.
Yeah. Right.
I still believe in Georgia.
Fields, etc.
I'm not picking Georgia. I'm picking the place where a Georgia quarterback went to, Miami. I like Carson Beck maybe more than some people, but I'm not exactly sure who he's throwing the football to. I'm not sure how many elite players they have on that team. And they kind of fumbled the ball last year as they were with Cam Ward, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They just feel like a team that I don't know if I'm ready to buy in year after year after year. It's just really hard when you lose that many guys to the NFL draft and to the pros to reload like that. That takes several years, especially in this environment right now. They're the one that I think in some ways being 10 is getting the benefit of the doubt because of what they did a year ago, but I could easily see them sort of falling by the wayside because I don't think – let me see. Are they playing – I mean, starting off with Notre Dame, I think that's going to tell us a lot. And then the Florida game, I think they're going to face a very different Florida than they did a year ago. So I think we could be looking at those first 4 games, Notre Dame, Bethune Cookman, South Florida, whatever, but Florida and then Florida State. We'll know a lot about where Miami is in those first 5 games. and I have a feeling we're not going to be looking at them as necessarily a title contender.
Absolutely. Great show loaded with.
Yeah, Mike's got to be negative.
Oh, that's right. That's my fault. Mike.
Actually, I don't have a very strong conviction on my pick here.
Okay.
I think Miami's a good choice. I still wonder about LSU, and I know I've talked about that being a potential tough game. I feel like they're a wild card, and in part because I feel like Nussmeier is such a wild card. But I have a sense that if you don't beat Clemson on the road, and if you don't a couple weeks later go and beat Ole Miss on the road, like things could really start to spiral for Brian Kelly and kind of the confidence of that team. And then you're looking at going to Alabama later. They still have to play A&M. They still have to play at Oklahoma. They have to play at Vandy. They have to play South Carolina. Like, I could see them losing 4 to 5 games if things really unravel for LSU and being unranked. If Nussmeier doesn't look like what I think he could look like. So that'll be my pick, but it's tough, like, to say a team's going to be in the top 10 and then unranked by the end of the year. It happens almost every year, but it's hard to pick who that will be this year.
LSU's got Coach O coming out and saying he wants to be back and coaching as well. So don't think he's going to be going to Baton Rouge, but or get a job, but who knows? We'll try this again. Great show loaded with content. Always like to put my guys on the spot to end the show. Ireland's got a pretty good one tomorrow Saturday between Iowa State and Kansas State. Our predictions are on the roundtable. But real quick, thoughts on that game? Anything?
I mean, I don't have strong here. I think Kansas State's probably going to be able to run the football. Avery Johnson is a good quarterback. Yep. I heard he got rid of his purple Lamborghini or Ferrari, whatever it was. So he's serious about football now. He must be. But yeah, I like them. But it's an even matchup. I mean, I don't know, that has playoff implications, and I still don't know why teams are going across the pond to play football, especially some of these teams. But hey, it is football. I'll take it.
Yep. Mike?
I don't really have any thoughts.
Cool.
I don't know if I'll watch it. So it will happen. It will exist. And then everybody will be tweeting about it because it's new and it's fresh. And then in 5 days, people are going to forget the game ever happened.
That's exactly right.
That's the kind of preview you really want. That's kind of preview for something.
That would really take us into the outro. But again, thanks for joining us. Thanks, Mike and Alex, for pulling out those thoughts and predictions. Another great show. We're recording this on Friday. We'll be out soon after that. We will be back for, I guess it's official game week, prep week. We're in game week over at Bama 247 next week. So we'll be back. I believe it's Wednesday. And then we'll also have a show on Sundays recapping the game. So excited about that. Maybe have some recruiting shows during the week as well. So a lot to be excited about. 8 days till kickoff. Thank you, guys.